We have a perfectly well-rounded group here. I am so happy to say that. Great, we're gonna get started with today's session. And I'm gonna cover kind of two main topics today. What the heck is Vision Zero? Why does it matter? And then secondly, what might you do? What are some steps to really move it forward? And we're going to split today's session. We're hoping it's really interactive into two halves. So we're going to start with the kind of what is it? Why does it matter? How's it different? We're going to go through some slides and then open up the discussion. Then in the second half, we're going to get more nitty gritty on, okay, what could you really do? How could you take this home if you're interested, or aspects of it? And then we're going to ask you guys to separate into breakout rooms and share some ideas. So be ready, be thinking about that. So maybe let me say a little bit more. Again, mentioned we're a nonprofit. I just want to say how happy I am to be here at the Safe Street Summit. I'm a big Florida fan. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, my whole life growing up. I go back, 2 or 3 times a year to visit family in the Orlando area, the Jacksonville area. And I've actually participated in this summit 2 or 3 times before. So really excited to be here. And I know y'all are doing amazing work and that you've got a big road ahead of you, both things. And speaking of that big road, we all have a big road ahead of us in the US when it comes to that goal of safety for all. I'm highlighting this just to show that unfortunately the US as a nation is falling far behind and has been for quite a while other industrialized countries in terms of traffic deaths. This is specifically traffic deaths, rate of traffic deaths. And I'm going to start with some kind of depressing stats first, I'll be honest, but this will hopefully help us focus on the urgency. You all probably know this stat as well. Unfortunately, Florida over the past couple of years has ranked very poorly around traffic deaths. By the way, best state changes every year. That's why I didn't list it. But just to show, some states are doing better than the national average, some unfortunately not as well. And I'm sure you're very familiar with this dangerous by design statistic, unfortunately, around pedestrian safety in the state. And again, I say all this with love because I am a Floridian. I know we can do better and we must do better. We've got a lot of challenges. So I'm sharing this photo. Can we do better? Yes, we can. Let me answer my own question. This is a photo of Jacksonville, Florida. My mom lives right inside on the other side of that fence and took a couple years ago. I'm showing this to kind of give an example of kind of what Vision Zero is and how it differs, which we'll talk about. But these kids are walking to school. There's a middle school right down the street, about 2 or 3 blocks away. And isn't it wonderful to see children walking to school? Don't we all want our kids to be active and walking to school? Yes, sure, that's great. Problem is, there's no sidewalks on this street. And while it looks like a mellow street, people drive down it really fast, really fast. But these kids don't have a choice. They don't have a safe option. I mean, they're walking and they're fine, but they really should have a sidewalk to walk on, right? And if they're biking, a bike lane. So really thinking about, can we do better? Yeah. Who are we looking at to do better? Who needs to do better? And that's really about kind of the difference between Vision Zero and the traditional approach. This is not meant to criticize the traditional approach. I really think of this Vision Zero approach, and we call it Vision Zero or safe systems. We'll talk more, but this Vision Zero safe systems approach is really an evolution from the traditional approach. And I won't go through all of these, but a few quickies. Traditionally thinking of traffic deaths as inevitable. Sure, we didn't say that word. We didn't walk around saying, oh, these deaths are going to happen. No, but let's be honest, societally, really across the world, we have a sense of complacency around traffic deaths, right? We want to lower them, but can we eliminate them? Yes, we actually can. Just like we're working hard to eradicate the coronavirus, other serious health issues over the years, right? Polio, smallpox, things that have been just severe killers. We know in this year, 40,000 people die on our roads, driving, walking, biking, that we know they are actually preventable. And it's really about what we do. So second one here, perfecting human behavior. We've worked for a long time trying to tell people to do the right thing, be careful. And yes, they do need to be careful. And yes, we do need to educate and encourage. But we also, Vision Zero helps us see a different way. Let's be honest, people are fallible. Humans make mistakes, even the best of us. Sometimes either the sun is in your eyes or you make a bad decision, say getting behind the wheel or such. So we've got to integrate human failing in. We don't expect it, we don't want it, but we have to be prepared for it. And really that, if you go down to the second to last, it's really thinking about how do we evolve, not dismiss, but evolve past the sense of individual responsibility and really think about a higher level systems approach to safety. And part of that really gets back to, are these things inevitable? So I'm going to just give an example. There's one thing I could ask everybody to do, and remember this later when I ask you, will you do something? Here's one easy one. Thinking about changing our language from accident to crash. So historically, I know I have, and most people call them traffic accidents. Oh, there's an accident on I-95. There's an accident on Main Street. You know, someone was hurt or killed. These aren't necessarily accidents. And I'm not getting into the who's to blame individually, but rather, could we have prevented this? So our language matters, even thinking about how we talk about it right now. So thinking about these as crash, I'd ask you to call them crashes, not accidents. Ask your teams and colleagues and families and friends to do the same, because words matter. We're sending this message that this stuff's out of our control. There's always going to be this slew of tragedies, 40,000 tragedies a year, and millions more injuries. But that's not the case. These aren't inevitable. So let me jump to the more positive. The more positive is more than 40 communities have adopted Vision Zero, and you'll see lots in Florida, which is exciting. So setting that goal of zero traffic deaths. And it's really thinking about, again, this responsibility. So you've got on the bottom right, yes, individuals need to share the road, but if they make mistakes, and some will, go up to the top, how are our system planners and policymakers really preparing for that? And really, again, this is the safe systems approach, and you can share more, see more on this online, but to really say, how are we focusing more at the top? Yes, we need to focus on the bottom. So again, individual knowledge, individual skills, but we need to do a lot more at the top. We need to influence policy and legislation and organizational practices. That's our street design. That's our policies. That's the speeds we set. So I know New York City is not like anywhere else in the world, and definitely not like anywhere in Florida, but I highlight them because they've had the longest running Vision Zero community or program in the US. And you'll see dramatically 5 years, I think, or 6 years of their Vision Zero program, which they put into place the beginning of 2014, significant decrease in traffic deaths. We're seeing activity across the country really quickly. Portland, Oregon, lowering their speed limits in the city to 20 or 25 on varying streets. Charlotte, North Carolina, I know, pretty close to Florida there, or closer in the south at least, lowering speed limits, adding traffic calming. Hillsborough County, Tampa area, they are doing a great job of focusing on speed management, at least in the planning stages and rolling it out. Macon, Georgia, really thinking about how Complete Streets works and such. So that was a really quick overview. I rushed, I know, a little bit, because we want to open it up to questions, comments, and then in the second half of this, we're going to talk more about, but what does it really mean? How do you do it? So let's pause here, if we will, and we'd love to put up a second poll. So this is going to help us gauge kind of where folks are at, what you're thinking after that very speedy round. So if you don't mind, answer this question of, what are your impressions of Vision Zero or the Safe Systems approach so far? And how could it help your community? So number one, I'm not seeing yet how Vision Zero would work or fit in my community. Number two, I'm cautiously optimistic that this could work in my community. I want to learn more. Number three, I am so excited. What can I do to bring Vision Zero home to my community? So if everybody would take a minute to do that, that would be great. And we'll just give it another 10 or 20 seconds or so. And at the same time, I'm giving you a little warning. We'd love to ask you to open up your screens, if you would, or turn on your screens, your videos, and join us. I think we've got a good number, about 20 participants. Hello, there's a brave soul. Welcome. Hi, another brave soul. Hello. So join us if you can on screen. If you can't, don't worry. This is no pressure. I know it's not always easy to, but we'd love you to, so that we see that there are other humans on this Friday afternoon that we're interacting with. And then we're going to ask them or offer up time for discussion and questions. So yeah, let's close the poll down. Hopefully everybody had a minute to do that. And let's see where folks are at. Oh my God, I love you guys. 88% are super excited, especially you in the green jacket. Yay, thank you. About 13% are cautiously optimistic. Totally understandable. I was there for a long time and some days still am. Okay. And 0 are not seeing it yet. All right, our work is done here. No, I'm kidding. Thank you guys. That was great. Thanks for doing that. So we're going to allow you to unmute now, and we want to take 5 minutes or so. We don't want to get like into the how do we do it until we pause and say, what the heck is it? Why does it matter? So any questions, pushback, suggestions on kind of the basics so far? You can either honestly just go ahead and throw out your question or type it in the chat if that's more comfortable. Either way.
I have a question. This is Jess Jocelyn with Kittleson and Associates. Thank you for speaking to us today. And I did jump in late, so I apologize if you already discussed this, but I often come across the target of 0 is never going to happen. Why bother? So I'm just curious if there's any way to approach that in the safe systems approach and how to navigate that tough discussion.
Thank you, Jess. That is an awesome question. And I feel like I should proactively say that because it's such a common question, not surprisingly. Let me say, when I first heard this concept, maybe 7 or 8 or 9 years ago, it comes from Northern Europe where apparently everyone is, just perfect all the time and people do the right thing all the time. You're like, oh, we're never gonna, this is not possible. We can't do this in America. So I was a little dismissive or cautiously optimistic. But the more I'm learning, and here's how I share it with people, partly this has to do with reframing and really, I would call it a paradigm shift in how we approach this work. Would anyone feel good about the idea? And I'm going to, share kind of an extreme example, but hey, we want to eventually vaccinate and make sure that 85% of people in the country are safe from coronavirus. Like that's good enough. 85%, the other 15%, good luck to you. Or pick any other severe thing, right? Let's say a terrible hurricane is coming. Is your governor or mayor going to say, hey, if we can save 50% of the people in this thing, we're going to be okay. That is not how we do things. So number one, this is acknowledging that, how you set your goals and how you message about it means something. It affects the way you do the work. And I'm not saying any of us are, half-assing it, excuse my language, that's not the case, but rather it does affect policy. It does affect political will. It does affect funding. It does affect collaboration. I'll say I've been really pleased to see a lot of my public health colleagues get more involved in traffic safety. And at the beginning of the conversation, a lot of them were like, well, wait, that's not really a health issue. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. 100 deaths a day, 40,000 a year, poor health because of decreased activity and asthma rates with pollution. This is a health issue. So, how we're talking about it matters. So do I think we will be a failure if we do not get to 0? No. But if we come back 5 years from now and we're 50% lower, I'm going to say, let's keep setting that goal of 0. And then we're another 50% lower and we're another 50%, will there always be something? Sure. But it changes the way we do it to set that goal and to work with that intent. I hope that's helpful. And if others have thoughts on that.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Oop, I think you're on mute. Oop, he might need to be unmuted. Kurt, I think you're still on mute if you have a question. Oh. Maybe type it if you want. And there was such enthusiasm there too. I was really excited to hear this question. Back. All right. If there aren't, and we're going to have more time at the end, by the way, so feel free type anything in the chat if you want, or bring it back to the end if that's okay. Because I think you're still on mute. Okay, we're going to move on if that's all right. Going to have a few more slides, and then we're going to ask you to move into breakout rooms. So be ready for that. All right. So usually along with that question that you just asked us, which is a great one, along with that, I'd say the next most common question I get is, okay, but how do we do it? Understandably, right? That's a very important question. So I want to walk through a little bit more of the how. So this is going to not, this is not everything, but do check out our website. We've got a whole thing there, a whole program called Vision Zero Core Elements. We developed with ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's really more detailed and helpful than this, but I want to kind of break this down into 3 big areas. You'll see on the left column. The top is leadership and commitment, and some examples of that. Second is safe roadways and safe speeds. You'll see that. And at the end, there's a lot here: data-driven approach, transparency, and accountability. They're all really important. So I do want to really emphasize that leadership piece, right? You need a leader on this. And we're going to ask you, spoiler alert, we're going to ask you at the end or in your focus groups or breakout groups to talk about who might be champions. Is it someone in your agency? Is it an elected official? Is it a community member in the business community? Is it an advocacy community? Who might be a champion? And let me say, you ultimately do obviously need like your mayor and other city leaders on board, but maybe you have somebody else kind of bringing it up the pipeline, so to speak. Then we'll talk a little bit more about these other pieces. But again, look online if you'd like to go and find out more about the how. So a bit more on the leadership. One of these core elements is, again, leadership. And you really want to think about not just those top leaders, but a big world of leaders. So I mentioned this to say, hey, these task forces or similar task force or work groups are really important. This is one that's including public health, law enforcement, policymakers. So that's mayor's office, city council staff, of course, transportation or public works department. It's really important that we're not just seeing this as a transportation issue. Yes, it is, but it's also, again, a health issue. It's a policy issue. It's a law issue, right? So we've got to think about everybody in there. So we've got stuff online about how to create and run a successful task force. Now kind of jumping to some of the tools. And let me say with Vision Zero, we're not trying to create a new toolbox. I am not a technical person. I'm not an engineer. I'm not even a planner, or I'm not a planner. So we're not trying to say, oh, here's a brand new toolbox with these like silver bullets, so to speak. No, what we're trying to do is say, hey, let's use the tools in the toolbox that are most effective. And we really do know what those are. What's often missing, frankly, is the political or public will to put them in place. And I'm going to highlight one of those, which is huge. It's probably the biggest one we can do, is managing speed for safety. Because if you go back to those core elements or those principles I shared at the beginning that, hey, Vision Zero, we expect, unfortunately, some people are going to make mistakes. That means sometimes there are going to be crashes. I'm not so Pollyanna or so optimistic that I think we're going to stop crashes. There's going to be some crashes. But you know what? If they can be a fender bender or just a broken ankle, wow, that will be, frankly, success, right? If it's not severe injuries and death and such. So the main thing that comes down to are two things: speed and separation of users, right? So we're gonna talk about speed first, and there's a lot of ways to do that. We design our streets differently. We set lower speed limits, and we use automated enforcement and things that are much more effective and, let me say, equitable. We don't think we should just be throwing more police officers at the problem. Frankly, there's not enough, resources in the world, and it is a dangerous job to be out there. And we know that there are issues with racial equity and concerns with the trust in the community. So automated enforcement being a tool there. And I want to highlight even more the speed issue. If there's only one image I ever share, one graphic, it's this one at the bottom. This one really, really moves me. I think about this almost every day. There is a wild difference between an average person, let's say myself, a relatively healthy person, walking on the street. If I'm hit by a car, average vehicle, moving 20 miles per hour, I have a 90% chance of survival. If I'm hit by that car at 40 miles per hour, I have a 90% chance of death. That's more severe for frail people, seniors, children, people with disabilities potentially. So this is really important. Now you look and say, okay, well, if we know this, and if we know we want people walking and biking in our communities more, especially, then we need to be setting and designing and enforcing our speed limits or speeds or streets for this safe speed. Why are we setting speed limits and designing roads for 45 miles per hour where we know people are trying to cross to get to school or to a bus stop? That is a design issue. That is a leadership issue and a systems issue. And I'm moving quickly just to run through. I mentioned, maybe I didn't explicitly, but there's also a really strong equity component to this work. Sadly, we know that some communities are really underserved in many ways in the nation, but particularly transportation safety is another one. These are national numbers. Low-income people are twice as likely to be killed while walking. African-American and Latino people are twice as likely to be killed while walking. And sidewalks are more likely to be in high-income neighborhoods. Ditto, predominantly white neighborhoods. Ditto, bikeways. I mention this because, again, it's a factor of how our systems are built and designed and operated. So if we're not designing the systems, the roads and the speeds in a way that is safe at first and truly equitable to all road users, we're going to have these kinds of inequities and problems. And I just kind of want to jump to the really high level right now and make an ask of everybody. I'm really excited to be part of a brand new campaign. It just launched last week, but we are calling for a national goal of zero traffic deaths. We've got huge supporters on board. We've got mayors, we've got the US Chamber of Commerce, got a bunch of businesses, and a lot of big groups, including things like AAA and again, ITE and National Safety Council, calling on this zero traffic goal. Why does it matter? Sure, it's just words. Well, it's not just words. What we then want to see is that this goal is really institutionalized and is leading the decisions about planning, policies, funding, those tough decisions about where should this extra space on the road go, or how should we set our speed limits, or who should have the right of way crossing. When safety is the first priority, we make different decisions. So I'm going to wind down here, and hopefully that's helpful. I want to kind of end this part, and then we'll go into breakout groups with a more positive note, because I think, we talk about zero in terms of no fatalities or severe injuries, right? That's our goal, zero. But what does zero really mean? And what is the work that you're doing, that I'm doing, that we're all doing around the country? What does it mean? It actually means more. If we are successful moving to zero, there's going to be more people celebrating birthdays and celebrations and life. And it really is, so connected to core work. In the end, transportation is a means to an end, right? It's the end is a good life and a healthy life and a healthy and fair community. Transportation is a way to get there. So how are we really thinking about this and prioritizing it in our work every day? I'm going to wind down there, and then we're going to ask y'all, if you would be kind enough, we're going to separate you out into discussion groups, probably 4 or 5 people each. And Sally, who is behind the curtain here, is going to do that. And we've got 4 questions. You'll see them here. You'll also see them in your chat box. So I'd suggest when you go into your breakout group, pull up your chat box so you can see them more easily. So we're only going to have 8 minutes for this, and set a timer or think about it, about 2 minutes each question. So just go around the circle, if you would, quickly. What's a safety challenge in your community? Just name 1 or 2. What are some opportunities? Is there a new mayor? Is there a transportation plan? Is there a new blank? Number 3, who are some possible champions? We talked about this. Who might be someone you go back to and say, hey, or maybe it's you. Hey, this is a good idea. Let's think about bringing this to others in the community. And then number 4, and I'd ask if you can only get to 1, jump down to number 4. What's one thing you could do in the next month to just explore this idea? It could be small. It can be reading some more. It can be having a conversation. It could be calling me to find out more, or it could be really big. Maybe you want to bring a resolution to your city council. Maybe you want to do a presentation in front of your entire agency. Yeah, those are some ideas. So great. We're going to have you break out now. And again, we're going to take 8 minutes. I hope I'm okay with time there. Someone tell me if not, but great. You should be seeing little pop-ups or something separating you, or pushing you into breakout rooms. Might take a minute or 2. So yep, I'm being asked. So yeah, join your breakout room, and then we'll invite you back into the main room after. Thanks, everybody.
No, sorry. I cannot. They cannot see this chat. They can only see the chat that they're looking at locally. If you can hear me, I can't even respond to the chat. Hello, welcome, Lelia. Sorry, Sally, I couldn't respond to you when you were texting me from that room you were in.
Oh, no problem. Is this Kurt? Oh no, this is our tech.
This is Raj with CVent. I just wanted to let you know I wasn't ignoring you.
No problem. I messaged Justine and she was able to help.
Okay, yeah, it looks like when I went into that breakout room, it
Yeah.
looked like the rest of the chat from the main session was all over there. So yeah, they can
Okay,
see that chat.
Okay.
But I couldn't answer you or do anything because you weren't in that room. And then I tried to go to the room you assigned me to, and you weren't there. So sorry about I couldn't answer.
No problem. I did just the auto assign, so I kind of sent all of us hosts. I just did auto to make it easy.
Yeah, that's fine. Not a big deal. And as tech support, we're supposed to just hang out here for you guys in case when you guys come back here, make sure everything's still rolling smooth.
Okay, great. I'm gonna go check in on some of these rooms and see how people are doing.
Okay, I'll let Justine know I spoke with you as well, so she doesn't think I'm not doing my job.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. unmute yourself? Can you mute yourself?
It's a reboot of the Brady Bunch, folks.
Does
Okay.
look like that.
Hey,
doesn't
Sabine. Mhm. Do we have her? Ah, there she is.
Hi, welcome everybody.
it? Lisa,
Oh, hello.
nice to see you.
Hi.
Doris is back. Okay, I left with like 5 things to do, which is mainly bugging Doris and Lisa and the people on my list about follow-up items. I'm excited to hear what other people have on their list. Maybe while people are just rejoining, I want to open it up. Any thoughts, questions? Then what we're going to do is ask you to share in your chat one of the items. But let me open it up because I think, Kurt, you might have had a question earlier that you weren't able to ask.
No, I just wanted to mention that I believe, and I checked, Oslo actually did achieve 0 deaths in 2019.
You're right.
Wow.
Congratulations.
And the city, as I understand, the city of Helsinki did for pedestrian deaths. They did have some, but
Gotcha.
only a few deaths of motorists, but 0 pedestrian deaths. So 2 cities that are just way ahead. And I'll just mention this, places that have been going at Vision Zero for 20 or 30 years, they have reduced on average traffic deaths by 50%. Again, they're not at 0, but they're 50% better. So it's pretty amazing.
If nothing else, aspirational.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, one thing I just want to mention is, you know, gosh, we know there's so many pressing issues, obviously, around public health, the environment, sustainability, economic health, racial and economic justice. These issues fit in so well. And obviously those are all right up here, but thinking about mobility and access to jobs and safe streets to walk and you know, be healthy, to get to grocery stores and parks, all of these really fit together. Obviously the environment, obvious. So just be thinking too in your work, how can you pull in partners from these different areas and movements to really make our work more, I think, interconnected. Great. If there's not any other questions, maybe what we'll do is I'd love to ask everybody, and we won't hold you to it. I promise we won't come and knock on your door, but if you could enter in the chat box, and I'm going to do it too, one thing that you think you could do or want to do or will do out of this. And maybe it's, again, maybe it's reading something, maybe it's having a conversation, maybe it's becoming a Vision Zero evangelist like me or something. But everybody type in just so we can see what you have. And you can type it in, everyone there.
Leah, I didn't resolve my chat issue, but I would just reiterate what I was saying before as far as changing the language. And in real life, I am an evangelist. So I would be happy to be a Vision Zero evangelist as well.
Great. Actually, and Doris, maybe just, if you don't mind, take 30 seconds and share what you do, because I think it's really valuable to others maybe to hear.
Yes, I explained that the Don't Forget Willie Foundation, we advocate for pedestrian safety measures, wise placement of bus stops, street lighting, all that kind of advocacy, all of those components. And the foundation was born out of the death of my husband, who was killed in a roadway crash 6.5 years ago. So in addition to advocating, we also get young people involved and get them to partner with seniors who are mobility impaired and just commit to pedestrian safety. And we give them small scholarships. We're a small foundation, but that financial incentive, I think, especially at a young age, encourages them to want to do more.
Okay. Super, thank you.
I can go on now if you got some to share.
Thank you, Doris. No, I was just really excited. I know I'm going to follow up with you and learn more about your work. I'm really excited about that. Thank you for that and for sharing.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just want to take a minute and maybe, look at folks' chats, if you don't mind. Yeah, it's great to think about, is it bringing people together? Is it making new contacts? Is it using new tools? Is it being more data-driven in your work? Obviously, there's a bunch of ways to do this. So I thank y'all and I'm also going to put in my website, just again, so people know where to find more information, because I know we move quickly through it, but some of the stuff we have online includes things like those core elements, more detail of the how. I know somebody mentioned GIS and hotspots. There's a lot of good information from other cities doing high injury network planning. So recognizing, hey, we don't have enough money or time to touch every spot in the world. How do we think about focusing on the most problematic spots? And how do we do it in a systemic way instead of a whack-a-mole way, right? Like, oh, where was the last terrible crash? Let's go fix that. Yeah, hotspots are important, but how do we get ahead of them and try and be more predictive and proactive? If we know a certain type of turn is a problem, let's not build those types anymore. Let's fix those intersections holistically, even if no one's ever been killed there. So you'll see a lot on our website about a little bit of the how. Again, they're not new tools. I think it's just a little bit of a, a different way of thinking about it. Great. I know we're going to wind down soon. Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you. I see great. Yeah, more chats coming in. This is awesome. You can have more than one. This is great. Oh, and also, so yes, folks are reminding me, please do fill out the evaluation survey, which you'll see clicked or linked there in the chat. So we would love you to do that. And I also ask people, please go to zerotrafficdeaths.org and sign on, get your elected officials and your agencies and your family and your PTA and your kids to sign on. Everybody, the more the merrier. Great. All right. Well, being conscious of your time and realizing that, hey, it's Friday afternoon and you guys just put in a bunch of time in this summit. Thank you so much for doing the work you do. It's so important. It's well beyond transportation. We all know that. So thank you. Have a great weekend.
Leah.
Leah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emailing you right now. Bye,
Awesome.
everybody.
Doris.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Great questions, great ideas. You're the best.
Bye. Likewise.
Thank you.